So what's a food forest? Where to start? How do you make an urban garden into a food forest? Is there space? Can you fit it out? Can you even do it? So we're going to address all of these questions and more in this video. I also have a companion blog to go along with it, so if you miss anything, you can check that out. Let's get started. But first, welcome to the Curious Nook. My name is Allie, and I've been gardening since 2006, and 5 years ago I turned our tiny urban lot into a food forest where we grow countless trees, shrubs, vines, and all sorts of other plants. In 800 square feet is the majority of our food forest. So if we can do it, so can you. I'm so excited to show you all of the different parts that you need to get your food forest going. So let's get started. So what's a food forest? So a food forest mimics a real forest, but it's used with edible plants. We're going to talk more about the layers and how all of that works later in the video. So now that we covered what it is, let's get into some of the tips that I have for you of how to have a successful food forest. So here are 5 basic things that you should do or know before you start planting your food forest. The number 1 is know your heat zones and know your USDA zone. So this is important so you can determine what kinds of plants and what kinds of trees you can grow. So if you're in zone 4, you might not be able to be successful at growing mangoes. But if you're down in Miami, you can grow mangoes, but you're not going to be able to grow your stone fruits, for example, that need chill hours. So be sure to know what your zone is before you get started with picking out your trees, because it's so easy to fall into the oh, I love this, let's try growing it. Believe me, I tried growing bananas and guavas with very little success because my area doesn't get hot enough, so I basically had stunted trees, and during the winter when we actually had a frost, they died. So be sure to pick what you can grow and what will thrive in your area. If you need to know a little bit more about how heat zones work or USDA zones, I'm going to link this video over here that's basic gardening tips, and that covers heat zones and USDA zones in the first few minutes of it, so you can check that out. And I'll also have more on my blog as well, so you can look into that. So my second tip is know your microclimates. Microclimates are areas that differ in weather or heat from other areas. So for example, your sunnier areas are going to be hotter than your shadier areas. Your sunnier areas near, for say, a house is going to be hotter than the ones further from the house. And that's because the house is going to be able to hold on to heat, especially if it's a darker colored house. So that's going to provide the item that you're growing there with more heat than something that's a few feet further away. So know the different microclimates in your property. Where do you get the most sun? Because you're going to have more success growing where you're going to have the most sun. There's very few trees that you're going to be able to grow in a super shady area. So be sure to know where you're planting so you can have the most success and not have to dig up things later and move them around. Although you can, but it'll just save you some time by doing this. The third tip that I have is know how much space you're going to want to dedicate to this and consider what space you have. If you have a large open field with a couple acres, pick what you want. But if you have a small space like I do, where the majority of our food forest is 800 square feet, you're going to need to consider trees that are not so small or not so large. So you're going to want your semi-dwarfs or your dwarfing fruit trees. They are going to give you the most success and not take up a ton of space. So knowing the different rootstocks is going to be really helpful for you. The fourth tip that I have is know your soil. So knowing what kind of soil you have is going to be beneficial for you, so you can know what to grow or what you need to add to the soil so you can be successful. So you can find out through a soil test if you need to amend the soil. Soil tests aren't actually that expensive, and depending on the university, if you have a university near you or different labs, you can do it for not too much. Some of them can get into like a couple $100s if you want to be super specific, but even stores like Home Depot nowadays sell kits that you can just send it in and get a soil test back to know what to put into it. So it's going to be super easy for you. So know how fast you're going to be able to have water drain from your soil, because that's going to impact how you do your irrigation as well. So be sure to know that. Also, if you have very acidic, rocky soil, fantastic for growing blueberries, right? But it's going to make something like apples really struggle in that soil. So you're going to need to know what to amend to it. So be sure to know your soil. You can test out by digging a hole, filling it with water, seeing how fast that drains, and then you can navigate how much water to give your plants, because you don't want them sitting in water and not have your soil drain and then have them rot, right? So if you have super heavy clay soil, you're going to need to incorporate a lot of compost into it so it can drain a little bit better. So I know this is a lot of information, but I just want to be able to have you succeed. And these are all things that we had to do when we first started. And it's not the fun part. It's definitely not. But this is going to help you in the long run. And the fifth and final before you get started tip that I have is plant trees with similar nutritional needs and water needs together. So plant your blueberries closer together, because those are going to need your more acidic soil and going to have different water needs from, say, your citrus trees, right? So grow the trees similar so you can have the irrigation and all those things set up for them, and it'll just make things a lot simpler for you. All right, so now let's get into the good stuff. If at any point in this video you have any questions or comments, let me know down below. And if you want me to expand on anything, let me know that as well. And then we can get a new video with those things broken down a little bit more, because some of the parts of a food forest can get a little bit daunting. But I'm also going to have my blog post up, so you can also check that for information. So let's start with the different layers of a food forest. The first one is going to be your top canopy. So that's going to be your very large trees. It can be your native trees that can provide nesting ground for predators like hawks and owls, and that will help you in your garden by keeping rodents at bay. And you can also have your bigger nut trees or mulberries and things like that. These are generally your cannot be contained trees. They're going to be your 20 feet tall or more. I personally don't really have any of these in my space, because I have some redwoods that are adjacent to my lot, and those actually help me. When you're looking at an urban lot, consider what you have around you as well, not just what's in your property, especially when you're thinking of like your top canopy of plants. These are nice to have, but you also need to think of your space. Okay? So now we're going to get into the second, which is your lower canopy of trees. These are where we have the most, and this is like the realm that we live in for my lot. So these are going to be your fruit producing trees. They're going to be the ones you're going to be harvesting a lot from. And for these, you need to consider what kinds of trees you're going to have. So the rootstock really matters for this. So I personally only have dwarf and semi-dwarf varieties. So the majority of my trees aren't really going to be 8 feet tall or taller. Only a few stone fruits that I have are a little bit taller, but they're still easy to harvest from, and that's your main goal, especially in an urban area. So the third layer that you have in a food forest is your shrubs. These are going to be your larger shrubbing varieties. So like I have blueberries and European elderberries that are large shrubs. They generally go near the trees. The blueberries are a little bit further because they need very acidic soil, but I have some European elderberries by my apple trees, and I also have some other shrubs around. So I have some natives. They're like currants and salvias that are fairly large that also help the wildlife. So that's something you're going to want to think about too, is being able to incorporate not just things that benefit you, but things that benefit the whole garden ecosystem, which is going to really help your food forest thrive. Okay, so below the shrubs, you're going to have your understory plants. This is a very big category, so bear with me. There's going to be a few examples, and let me know if you want a whole separate video on this, because I can really talk about understory plants a lot because it's such a wide group and they're all so beneficial to have. So try to incorporate a few of them around. Some of the understory plants you're going to have, it's going to be the ones that attract pollinators. So these are going to be your nectar-rich flowers. Other ones that you're going to have, it's going to be the ones that repel pests. So like marigolds are fantastic for this. They also prevent against root knot nematodes, which you really don't want to have around. Another one that you're going to have is the ones that are going to be your weed suppressors. So lemon balm is a fantastic use for this, and it's also a great medicinal plant to have as well, and also helps with plants thriving in the garden. So it serves many purposes. For a lot of understory plants, you're going to see many of them serve many purposes and can be used in different categories. The other ones that you're going to have is your mulchers. So this seems kind of a weird one for a lot of people, but you not only just want to mulch around your trees anyway, but another thing that you can do is plant things like strawberries. Strawberries are fantastic mulchers, and you can also use them for food. So that's a really great one to have around. So another category is your nutrient accumulators. So these are going to be plants like comfrey and buckwheat. They're going to store a lot and also really help your soil. And then you have your nutrient fixer plants, which these are kind of like your cover crop type plants, like fava and peas, and even buckwheat is fantastic for this. For me, I'm also lucky because I'm in California, so I have flowers like lupin and phacelia that are actually fantastic at helping the soil as well as providing food for pollinators. So look into your environment, because I can guarantee you that you're going to be able to find a lot of native plants that are really helpful for this. And having native plants around in general is just really going to help your environment thrive and help wildlife. Now, you may have noticed that one thing that I've left out is vines. In forests, you generally have vines climbing up trees and taking over. You also see in some other like older permaculture gardens, the vines climbing everywhere. I'm not the biggest fan of this practice because, one, you can have vines either climbing trees and taking them over, or you can have them going on the ground. It's great if you have a lot of space and just want things to be wild, but in an urban garden, this does not help at all because they can get tangled, they can get over, and if you have small trees, the vines are going to take them over super quickly. So my advice for incorporating vines into your permaculture food forest is to have them as fences or over arbors, because this is not only going to make it an attractive feature, it's going to make it a space that provides shade, can be a sound barrier. Like I have a fence that has a really big passion fruit on it. That is a fantastic sound barrier. Also provides some shade to the other side where we have my son's dino garden. So you can incorporate them into ways that are useful, and in a fence structure, especially if it's a dual-sided fence, it's going to make it so you can harvest from both sides. It makes it a lot easier for you. So keep in mind, if you want to incorporate vines or caneberries, to have them more in your climbing variety or vertical variety, because it takes up less space and it makes it a lot easier for you to be able to harvest from them as opposed to them crawling around. So one of the last things I'm going to cover in this video is how far apart to plant your trees. This is a really big thing, and it's really dependent on the kind of trees that you get in your rootstock. So for me, I have semi-dwarfs and dwarf type trees, and I also have different types of trees. So things like my citrus here, these are 4 feet apart. This big Meyer lemon is actually around like a 6-foot ball. So it's a fairly sizable tree compared to this one that's much smaller. Huge producers. We probably don't even use as much as it produces, but that's how far apart we have our citrus, is 4 feet, because we also try to keep them smaller. So how far apart you space them also is going to be heavily impacted by how you prune them. So if you prune your trees to be smaller, you can actually plant them a lot closer. If you just let your trees get really big, and especially if you have your standard variety trees without your dwarfing or semi-dwarfing rootstocks, then it's going to be a lot more difficult for you to plant them if you're going to let them get really big. So my recommendation is, in an urban garden, to just pick dwarfing trees or semi-dwarfing trees, keep them smaller, especially if you're not trying to have it be a market garden for you, if you're not trying to have gigantic yields where you're going to be selling a lot of what you're growing. So if it's just going to be for your personal consumption or to give out to friends, keep them smaller. You can get more varieties in, and it can be a lot more productive garden space for you. And in a few years, you might be able to actually turn it into a market garden as well. Okay, so keep that in mind. And for my apple trees, for example, I have them 8 feet apart because they are your bigger varieties. They're semi-dwarfs, but they can still be your 12 to 16 feet. And same for my cherry and plum that I have in my son's dino garden. I have those 8 feet apart. I also have apricot at the end of the citrus row that is at the end, so it's made more of an espalier shape, so it can take up a little bit less space of the walkway, and it can be kind of a little bit bigger than just compacted by the citrus. So you have to kind of plan around with how you're going to be spacing them and where you're going to be putting them so you can optimize your space. One of the biggest things that we did for planning out our garden was measuring and just walking around the space with a measuring tape and a notepad and just kind of sketching it out and figuring out how we could make it. So we actually made a curving pathway one way and a regular pathway another. So we incorporated 2 pathways. One is more just big enough for one person to go through. The other one you can actually get a wheelbarrow through. And we had to make sure to think of how we were going to incorporate everything so we could be able to use the space the most efficiently and cram as much as we could into the space. So planning is my bonus tip to you. If you're going to be doing a food forest, think of what you want to grow in it, like what you eat, what you want to eat, and just plan out where you want your spaces. So I have my apple trees in a more triangular shape with 8-foot distance between them, and I can pepper things around. So I have on one side by the fence, I have my shrubs along with them, and then I have some smaller things around. And then for the citrus here, it's more of a corridor where I just have trees and understory plants for them. So planning is going to be a really big part for you, but I'm sure that you can do it. And if you have any questions, really let me know in the comments or DM me on Instagram and I can help you out. I hope this video is helpful. I know this was a ton of information for you. So if you want me to expand on anything, if you have any questions, let me know in the comments. The link for my blog post to go along with this that has all this information is linked in the description. Let me know if you need help with anything. Until next time, plant what brings you joy.